Welcome to The Mountain Gardener with your host, Ken Lane. Gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and local advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome your host, Ken Lane.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. This is your host, Ken Lane, focused on the outside, the landscapes of northern Arizona. We're quite different here. The water is different, the soil is different, the wind is different, the dryness is different. Everything about northern Arizona is different. I'd say all of Arizona, but we're only worried about the four-season climates. As you come up out of Black Canyon City and you come up into God's country, you make that elevation on I-17 and come up and erupt, and you just see all the peaks and the mountaintops. That's what we're talking about, whether it's the White Mountains to Kingman to Flagstaff to Cottonwood. We're all similar. We're in this thing together. Yes, we have different zones, but pretty much we're dealing with a four-season climate where it gets substantially colder than just 32 degrees. We're getting down, I think at my house, I've been down to 11 degrees. And I know the higher, I'm at 5,700 feet, so I know you folks up in that 7,000 foot level, you're in the single digit zero. And it's been a good snow year. That's great for the wildflowers. It's actually great for the wild weeds as well, so that's one thing to watch. As soon as we get the thaw, as soon as this snow kind of melts off, the last of it, I predict you're going to see daffodils erupting from their bulb-like state. They've been sleeping in the ground in a bulb form, and that root is going to come up and start to grow. Iris will grow. Crocus will start to bloom in February. So things are going to start to activate. Already we've got at the garden center some winter blooming heath. We have winter blooming camellias, of all things, an evergreen camellia that will actually grow at the high elevation. Loves the cold. Californians, I had a corporate stint in Northern California for a number of years, and I loved growing my camellias. These were tropical, or they're not hardy enough to grow here in the high country of Arizona, but boy, did they grow really well in Folsom and Roseville and the Sacramento high Upper Valley area. They grew exceptional, and I fell in love with them. So when I found this grower that had camellias that would grow up here in the high elevations, I'm all over it. I'll take every one in the greenhouse. I want them all right here. And they have performed exceptionally for me. And so they can do well for you. They just need a little bit of shade, but they don't need any protection from the cold. They'll go down to, I think, minus 20 degrees, some crazy cold. And sure enough, they're budding up and they're starting to bloom now. So things are the leading edge, just starting to see that spring might be around the corner. It's very exciting. From a gardener, we've been pent up too long, haven't we? We've been indoors, been worried about slipping on ice, just getting that last bit of snow out of here on that north side of the house. It's not been nice for the last few weeks. So it's finally nice to be out and enjoying the weather, being out to hike, bike, taking the ATVs and the Razor out and just going out and seeing the backcountry. That's what northern Arizona is really famous for. So even in mid-January, it's cold, but it's still nice. Usually it's bright days. It used to be real chilly nights, and so it's nice to live here. So it's the mildest four-season climate you can have really in the country. And so you've got skiing right there in Flagstaff. Love it. We've got the White Mountains. You guys have an awesome hill that's just great for skiing. Yet I can still head down to Scottsdale, hit the golf course, and go swimming. And everything in between, all within a couple hours of each other. Is it wonderful living here in Arizona or what? So that's Arizona. What we're finding now, though, is you've got to start preparing for the spring season. There's some things you need to get done or spring will start and be ahead of you, and you'll be playing catch up from this point forward. And it's all really going to start with the seed and the soils and the weed seeds and the soils. So you get your soils ready for the gardens. You do want to have your soils prepared ahead of time so that they have time to neutralize. So the manures that you put in there, the fertilizers, the organics that you put into your soils to front load them with all these nutrients, you want to do that right now. So that when you're done turning the soil, so I've put all my gypsum down, I've put my sulfur and fertilizers down, I put a 2-inch layer of compost and manures down, I've turned it twice, I'm ready to plant. I'll let it rest for 2-3 weeks before I start plugging plants. And yes, you can start putting out there winter kale, lettuce, spinach, broccoli, cauliflower, flowers like pansies, Johnny Jump-Ups, violas, Dusty Miller, snapdragons, and it goes on. The herbs, you can put organic oregano, parsley. A lot of these they like this weather. If we get some more snow, they like that. They taste better. They bloom stronger, longer with the cold. So there's some things you can start, but you need to have your soil ready beforehand. If you simply mix all that soil up now, you front load it with this nitrogen and all these organics, and it's what we call hot. It's got too much nitrogen. You put your seedling in, and the roots, it's too hot. There's too much food there. It's like feeding a baby, steak and potatoes. It's just too much for them. They can't do it. And so you want that soil to kind of neutralize and rest for a couple of weeks. That's one thing you need to get done. When I'm preparing my raised beds, usually I'll take my container gardens. I've got large containers. And if there's some old roots left over from last winter, last fall, the last year's gardens, I'll try to always add some freshness to my containers, some fresh potting soil. So I'm looking to dig all those old roots out. Well, I'll take those old roots and I'll throw them over to my raised beds or just out in the garden. I'll turn that organics. Yes, there's some old roots and things, but a bigger space doesn't matter so much. In a very confined, tight space, like a container garden or very small raised bed, you need to add some freshness, some fresh soil to that garden. Just to add some fertilizer, that's not enough. As those old roots break down and decompose, they poison or taint the soil and prevent roots from growing into it. It's a natural way of plants. And so if you know that, just dig some of that out. And I'm looking to add a bag or two of some good, rich potting soil, new potting soil. If you do that, really changes the game on those pots. Really makes them grow fast. Whether it's a tomato or a new mum or I've got some new bleeding heart perennials. The peonies are starting to show up. Things are starting to show up. It's going to help them to root out and do better. Those are things you need to get done. The other one, weeds. I predict weeds are going to be bad. We've had a lot of moisture, so weeds are going to come after you. So dandelions are already up. The foxtail, as soon as the snow starts to thaw, there's a nasty grass. It looks so innocent. It looks beautiful. It looks like you're in Ireland, and it's the rolling hills of green. And then it starts to dry about April, and then it puts on this burr, that little seed head that wants to spike through your socks and go through your ankle and come out the other side. The dogs will get it up their nose. They'll get it in their eyes. The cats will get it in their paws and then try to gnaw it out. I mean, it's a nasty, nasty weed. That weed only comes back by seed. It's an annual. It only reseeds itself, never comes back from the roots. So if you know that's how that nasty early spring, late winter weed germinates, you can put a weed and grass preventer down to eliminate that weed from coming up, to keep any other dandelions from blowing their seed and coming up, from keeping those early spring seed or weeds from coming up. And that's all about weed and grass preventer. So it's a granular. We sell it in a bag. One bag, it costs like $20-$25, but it goes like 5,000 square feet. It goes over most of the front yard or backyard. You spread this like fertilizer and pray for more snow, pray for more rain. It carries this preventer down, and it keeps the seed from germinating and putting its taproot into your rock lawn, into your raised beds. It doesn't affect the roses, the trees, the shrubs. It doesn't affect anything already growing. It only keeps the seed from coming up. Really will reduce the amount of work you need to do out in the yard, but you need to get it on early because it doesn't affect plants. It only affects seed. Be right back.
You've been listening to The Mountain Gardener with Ken Lane, owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Join him every week for timely garden advice right for the gardens. Visit Ken where he can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott.
Waters Garden companion plants of February are peony, Calgary carpet juniper, lily of the valley, and pinyon pines.
Pinyon pine have thick evergreen needles providing year-round beauty and summer shade.
It's a local native that blend equally well in a modern or Mediterranean-style landscape.
Go ahead, enjoy the buttery rich pine nuts from your own backyard.
You'll have plenty of nuts, and pine are deer and javelina proof.
Shop the most trees in Prescott by store or online at watersgardencenter.com.
Let's talk poop. Hey, I'm Tommy at Waters Garden Center. Ken and Lisa are out right now, so I snuck in to remind you that it's time to add some manure to your garden. It's been a wet winter, and your soil is, well, pooped. Waters Barnyard Manure adds nutrients to get your garden growing. It's organic and odorless, so we really can say our poop don't stink. Buy 6 bags or more. They're only $5.99. Now that's a load of crap.
Tommy, what's going on?
Oh, poop, gotta go. Natural, safe, odorless, and organic at Waters Garden Center.
You've been listening to Ken Lane, the Mountain Gardener. Green thumbs learned while working in the Family Garden Center. Now welcome back to the Mountain Gardener.
All right, so Ken and Lisa Waters Lane. We come each week with this segment just to go over the Q&A, the questions. What are other gardeners talking about? And there's something to be learned. You know, I was teaching a garden class last week. It was on how to prepare dirt, like the simplest of garden topics, but the most complicated because it's the soil is everything. Right. If you get that right, you can stumble your way into success. Ask any Midwest gardener. You don't have to be a gardener. You have to be able to chuck your hat out in the garden and watch it grow because the soil is so ripe for so vigorous, so easy. We saw that in Northern California. You just try and it goes. Here, you can have that same experience, but it's got to be, you got to get the soil right. And so that when the class is done, I was mobbed by like 15 people wanting to know more of the question. They were really into it. That's and good. Some folks just hovered around the edges just to listen to the conversation. They didn't have a question. They just wanted to learn from other folks. That's a great way to learn. And that's what we want for this segment. So welcome to the studio, Lisa.
Thank you. You know, frequently I hear people say, I thought I was a gardener until I moved here. Yeah. I'm like, well, you're still a gardener. You just have to learn a little bit different
techniques. Yeah, that's good. Tips and tricks that kind of work here. And it's the sun, it's the alkalinity. There's certain things, the altitude, the wind, the seasonality of it all. The extremes. Right now we're getting to the extremes. Things are starting to grow, but it's only the things that like extreme growth. Like I was looking in the back of the nursery. There's a honeysuckle blooming. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. But it's just happy in the sun, just right there.
Yeah. All right. So we do have some questions kind of relate to that. So Richard in Prescott was pruning his maple tree and noticed that it was really sapping, almost like water pouring out of the tree sapping. Wants to know, should he be concerned about that? Should he use prune seal or just let it do its thing?
So there's a couple things. Now, the book would say when you make a cut, seal it with that black pruning paint. There's a special kind of paint you put on there. We've got it in spray form. There's one with a can that's got a brush on it. I kind of take the middle ground. So some folks say you have to do it with every cut. Others say, oh no, it seals in the disease. I don't know. There's all this debate going on. Really, what I personally have found works. I did a whole bunch of pruning this week. I did not seal one of them, including maples. I noticed that with the boxwoods too. They were the grapes. They were bleeding out like that. I didn't seal them because there's no bugs right now. There's no disease. There's no pestilence roaming around. Not very much. And so I'm more worried about a fungal thing getting in there starting to eat that live tissue. Well, by the time those things are active, it will have scarred over or dried out. So at first it's quite alarming when this tree starts to, you see the sap running down out of this wound.
Right.
I think it's okay. That evening, it will cool right down. The sap will slow, and I think it will seal itself or scab over by itself. I don't think there's any need. If it's really running and you're worried, come in. We've got some pruning paint. Put it on there. It'll stop that. That's also why we say to prune in the winter. When it's cold, the sap is less likely to be running at that point. Or if it is during the day, it cooled down that evening, and then it slowed it right down. Yeah. So in the summer, definitely you want to seal it.
Right.
When you're pruning your roses, anything bigger than a pencil, you want to seal that because there's a little beetle that comes in that lays her eggs, and it's a cane borer. There's some things that happen, but for just basic fruit trees, shade trees, you're probably fine. I wouldn't worry about it, Richard. If you do really want to worry about it, play it safe, come in and get some paint. Yeah, that's easy.
All right. Jennifer in Prescott Valley planted a peony in a pot last spring.
Yeah.
She has not trimmed it back yet, but she wants to know, is now the time, and is now the time to fertilize?
Jennifer, I'm proud of you. You went and planted a peony in a pot. That's garden-esque. That's like, that's out there. Usually everyone puts them in the ground or raised beds, but they're very pretty in a container. They got this ferny foliage. They bloom in the spring. They got all this foliage is really pretty. I think that's a great way to go. Now in the winter, they die back to the ground. So you can just whack that thing right off, just right as close to the pot as you can. And then probably give it a good watering when you're all done. You might even add a little fertilizer on top, but before you water it. So take some of that all-purpose plant food and sprinkle some of that and water it in. And you'll probably see the new peony eyes coming up within 3 weeks. I mean, we're almost there. So go ahead. Don't worry about it. It's hard to kill a peony. They've got roots that go down to minus some crazy cold that we never see. So it'll be just fine. Yeah. Right. Enjoy.
You do bring up a good point of watering it. So I'm finding people have not watered.
Yeah.
And we really have not had a significant amount of moisture since Christmas.
Yeah.
Before
it's been
Christmas.
a long time.
So it really would be a good time to get your hoses out or run your system. Those things need some water.
When right before we had that crazy cold, like 10 days ago, I was out there. I was shivering, had lots of layers on, took the hose. I didn't want to turn the irrigation on. I just took the hose and watered all the containers mainly, or the brand new plants. I just put them in, like November. I watered those because a hydrated plant will go through that like it was nothing.
Right.
A dry plant, dry and cold, that's never good for plants. So it's kind of an insider tip for you.
Okay. Next question is from Sean. He has 2 acres in Chino Valley.
Oh.
They're not ready to build yet, but they want to keep weeds and all that from taking over on the property. And they were thinking about putting out wildflower and some of the meadow grasses.
Sure.
And just curious, do you need to get rid of all the weeds before you do that? And is now a good time to do that?
Now is the ideal time to put wildflowers out. I mean, by the end of February, when your timing's peak window right now. So go ahead, whether it's wild grasses or wildflowers, for them, a meadow mix. Actually, for them, Chino Valley, 2 acres. We've got a wild, like Western native grass, like what you see growing on the side of the road. The good stuff, not the tumbleweeds and the trashy, the good things. That would be great. It's a taller grass, gets up maybe knee high or so. It would for sure shadow or block out all the other weeds. I'm not sure about some bull thistle, some of these really nasty weeds, horehound.
Right.
Maybe that's hard, but even those like to see the sun. So these are tall enough and they're aggressive enough, they'll block things out. So I would say absolutely time to do it. Go for it. If you can get the weeds out of there, as many as you can, because once you start putting food and water and you start nurturing this garden space,
you'll be amazed.
Wildflowers grow, everything starts growing. So if you can, Richard, kind of take some of that. Or was that John? Chino Valley. I remember that. Sean.
You blended it all together.
Yep, there we go. Got a lot of things going through my head. So anyway, I would say get rid of the weeds and go for it. I think you're fine.
So you could probably even, if you wanted to mix some wildflowers in with that revegetated mix, you could, right?
I mean, poppies, they get pretty tall.
Yeah.
Echinaceas, gaillardias. These are tall wildflowers. I mean, some of the smaller ones, like little daisies and stuff, they might get shadowed out, but they'll seed and they'll reach towards the base of those grasses and they'll start sprouting up at the feet of those grasses. So often you see in a meadow, you'll see taller grasses, shorter grasses, lots of different kinds of flowers. And I would think it'd be beautiful to take the Arizona mix. We make a special Arizona wildflower mix and put that in with your grass and just kind of put them in the same baggie, shake and bake them, just kind of shake them around, mix them all up, and then spread that throughout the yard. Make sure that you're putting some mulch on top of that seed or the birds will find the seed highly attractive. Right. You don't want to put the world's, especially the grassy kind of seeds, they're bigger seeds. You don't want the birds eating your seeds. So
especially the crows.
Yeah.
The crows are out in full force right now. They've been harassing our dogs. What are you crows doing?
Come see us for more. We are out of time, and we'll help walk you right through there. Sean from Chino Valley. Appreciate it. Hey, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Ken Lane, a.k.a. the Mountain Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week in Prescott at Waters Garden Center. Listen each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to mountain gardens. Some stores are meant to dash into, hunt down your purchase, and leave promptly.
It's part of our 24/7 cyber world where it's difficult to decompress, slow down, and enjoy the environment.
We miss the tactile experiences, fragrance, and enjoyment that come from slowing down and admiring the majesty of something as simple as a butterfly.
Waters has elevated lingering to an art form with experiential pauses built into the very DNA of the garden center.
We're designed purposefully for leisurely strolls through the many greenhouses that beckon guests to enjoy the plants.
We work tirelessly to craft an environment that aesthetically reflects the cycle of the seasons.
When you finally have a plant question, one of Waters' plant ambassadors are here to help you choose plants that will thrive in your landscape.
Decompress and learn how to linger in the garden once again here at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
You've been listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Join the conversation every week as he answers timely garden questions. Email Ken a question directly from your phone to his desktop through the web at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Now welcome back your host, Ken Lane.
Now we started the show with not just the 4 seasons, but the 6 seasons of the mountains of Arizona. That's early spring, the perennial month of June, summer, fall, and then winter, 6 seasons. We're going into that early spring season. Those plants that love bright, warm days, but they can take on cool evenings. They can take on a light snow. The harshest of winter, it's over. We're not having that anymore. But we can have a light frost. There's not going to be any heavy freezes, but we will have a light frost. Those plants need to be able to take that. And lilac is one of those great plants, a classic for the mountains of Arizona. In fact, we grow lilac better than most parts of the country. And yes, that's the same shrub that your grandmother grew in her backyard, and it filled up the entire yard with this wonderful lilac fragrance. But there are so many more choices than your grandmother ever dreamed of. There's probably, 6, 8 different varieties. There's so many, I don't know how many there are, varieties of lilac out there. Of course, the common eastern lilac, common lilacs, those are the ones your grandmother grew. That's that purple or lavender colored flower. But now they're coming out with varieties that have a larger flower that's even more fragrant, like Mr. Lincoln or President Lincoln lilac. It's a common lilac, like your grandmother grew, only it's a real showstopper. Oh my goodness. It's magnificent. Blue sky lilac is more fragrant. It's the same color, same size, but the fragrance is sweeter than your common lilacs. There's white lilacs, very fragrant. There's yellow. There's reds. I even have one that's purple or it's almost purple bordering on red with a white variegation on each petal. Not the leaves, the flowers. It's called Sensation Lilac. And you can keep going on and on. They have every size, every shape, every color. Most lilac, most really perennials, most things that bloom for you need to be of certain age before they'll actually show off. So they're kind of like people, you get them from the nursery and they're sort of in that adolescent stage. They look like people, but they're not quite full grown up, and they need to mature a little bit more before they really are showstoppers, before you want to put them on the cover of People magazine for plants. They need to be a certain age. Lilacs are typically going to be 3 to 4 years old before they're old enough to really show off. So your little 1 gallon size plant, they may not bloom. You might get a bloom this year, but not a lot of them. You jump up to a 2 or a 5 gallon, all of a sudden you go, whoa, that's pretty, I can't believe how many buds are on this thing, because it's a couple years older. So watch that as you're buying plants. This is especially true for fruit trees. Fruit trees, we love to graft let's say a Harcot or Chinese apricot or Fantasia nectarine or a Santa Rosa plum or a Honeycrisp apple. We'll graft a really strong, desirable fruit tree onto a strong, hardy rootstock. It's growing up, and we'll sell it in what's called not Waters Garden Center, but the industry will sell it before it's really ready. It's a whip stage, or there's a stage when it's just actively growing but not really mature enough to set fruit. It'll set leaf buds, but not flower buds. So be careful of that. You want to make sure it's of fruiting age. And they'll ask, you should be able to ask and go, oh, is this a fruiting age? If they stare at you and going, huh, what? Or they just bluff going, yeah, it is. You want 1 or 2? Kind of have them verify for you. Have them, drill them, ask them, really do your homework on it. So a fruit tree typically has to be 6 to 7 years old before it's old enough to start bearing heavy fruit crops. If you get one that's old enough and you put it in the ground now, you can actually have fruit on the tree right this year, right this spring. You'll have cherries, you'll have a pear, you'll have whatever that fruit that you like. You can have it if you get a mature enough fruit tree. A 15-gallon size tree typically is old enough. 5 gallons are starting to be old enough, maybe or maybe not. Anything smaller than a 5-gallon, no, it's not going to fruit for several more years from now. So kind of put that on your radar. Also, watch your chilling hours while we're on fruit trees. Okay, this is gardening for newcomers, kind of getting you up to snuff, just so you make less mistakes. I see this often. We have a heavy desert influence up here in the mountains of Arizona. They're selling fruit trees that should fruit down in the deserts, but as soon as you get it up here, it won't fruit. It blooms too early. And you'll look on the tag of fruit trees, and it will say it needs 600 chilling hours. That is, it needs so many nights of cold before it will decide to wake up and bloom. If it's real short chilling hours, it will wake up early. It'll be blooming in February and March, and we still have another 2 months of frost to potentially hit that tree. If it has a lot of chilling hours, let's say 5, 6, 7, 800, 900, 1,000 chilling hours, that means it's going to be well into spring before it leaves out, blooms, so you're out of that risk of frost damage. You'll have more consistent fruit. Anyway, if you need more on that, come talk to us. We can handhold you, walk you right through the whole process.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for timely garden advice right for higher elevations. Guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Waters Garden companion plants in February are peony, lily of the valley, pinyon pines, and Calgary carpet juniper.
Calgary carpet juniper shows rich green mounds of juniper beauty that grows ankle high for the perfect ground cover.
An ideal choice for low water, low care erosion control on natural banks or to soften that rock lawn.
The perfect green nestled between boulders or to soften the top edge of a retaining wall.
Shop for these juniper beauties in Prescott by store or online at watersgardencenter.com. gardening and you don't know where to start?
Water's in-home garden service comes to you and identifies what you have and how to make it better.
Design advice, water strategies, vegetable and flower gardens, soil and food needs, and problem solving. Always problem solving.
You'll instantly be a better gardener.
All for just $200 of expert time with a coupon to fill your garden dreams without ever leaving home.
In-home garden consultations from Water's Garden Center.
We can be at your home this week.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening is very rewarding, with a few Ken's tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts sure to turn your thumbs even greener. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
All right, so back in the studio with Lisa Waters Lane. Welcome back, my lady.
Thank you.
My fine lady. I don't know. Never mind. Must be at the end of the day, getting tired. Anyway, Lisa comes with just this garden segment. It's all about just sharing a different perspective. And I love your perspective. Actually, I love the men you love. We'd be slapping. I was in a truck unloading hundreds of trees yesterday. I'm just sore. I think you went in the hot tub, watched a movie, drank a little wine, and I couldn't move the next day. Oh my gosh. So I was still kind of recovering from that. So anyway, it's harder to get creative when you're just tired, I think,
that
sometimes. Anyway, welcome back to the studio. Whoa, bless you. My goodness.
Me.
So what do you got for us?
Well, after that. So I have a little PSA announcement for those people who love their pansies and cool season plants. We got some hanging baskets of pansies in.
Those are cool.
Yeah. And I love that idea because there's so many people that want to grow them and have them, but they have javelina or bunny, deer, things that love to come in and eat them.
Yeah.
So this way you can hang it up and you can have your pansies and enjoy them and not have to worry about the wildlife.
I really like pansies in big baskets like that because they're just full. I mean,
That's
they're
true.
instantaneous. And I like them in my containers because it looks like I cheated. Like I've been growing them all year there. And I just plopped them out. Sometimes you don't even take them out of the container. Just plop them there. It just looks easy.
It's amazing. So we're both having issues, aren't we? So my parents, last spring, I gave my parents a hanging pansy basket.
Yeah.
That thing was bloomed all through the summer. It's still going through the winter. It does beautiful. So they have a little nice yard where they get really filtered sun in the summertime. So some people think, I can only get it for a month. Why should I have it? No, you can grow these year round. So it's definitely worth having. They should check them out. We also got some 1 gallon pansies. I think the Frizzle Sizzle, which are some of my favorite ones. We used to call them petticoat pansies because they look like they have a little skirt.
What I used to something skirt, mini skirt,
flirty skirt,
that's
skirt.
Yep.
Mini skirt, flirty skirt.
Something. It looks like a Marimel row or top of a grape. They have that kind of feathery, frilly, pretty,
fluttery. Yeah,
they're beautiful.
Yeah, so definitely time to be putting those in. And we also have some other cool season stuff to go along with them. But that's not what I'm here to talk about.
Okay, that's good enough. I mean, we can cut it off right here. That's golden.
Okay. No, we also got all our fruit trees in.
Yeah.
Really pretty fruit trees. And I think we're getting another load next week.
That's right.
Too.
No, we got them some really interesting fruit trees. Some braided varieties, like 2 varieties. The trunks are braided. We've got
so cool.
grafted cherries, grafted apples, like 5 types of apples on one tree.
Right.
Apricots, the peach. There's all kinds. It was fun to unload that truck.
It was fun. So the ones that really caught my eye were, of course, the fruit salad ones, and I like those because it's not just apples or just peaches. I think it's a cherry, an apricot, nectarine, and peach or something. It's like 4 different fruits
on the same tree. That's wild. I've never seen that before.
I know.
Doing this for 40 years, 30 years, whatever. I've never seen that. That's so neat.
So that's really cool. Of course, we have the 4-in-1s, specifically apple, pear, and cherry. Then we also some 3-in-1s as well. But those are terrific for those smaller yards where you can't put 3 or 4 fruit trees in.
Yeah.
You can put one in and still get all different kinds of fruit or peaches or not
on a
peaches,
back patio.
Sure.
I just reach out and pick a peach and then some cherries and then a nectarine. I mean, come on. It doesn't get any better than that. That's kind of neat. Really. It's artistry of gardening, really.
And it's fun.
Yeah.
It's just fun. We also got some dwarf peaches in, which are also really popular for those backyard gardener people trying to grow their little gardens. We got the pixie and bonfire. Thank you. I wanted to call it bonanza, but I wasn't.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm here for you.
Yeah. So great little fruit trees. And they grow wonderful in containers.
Oh yeah.
So
raised beds in the ground next to a patio or just where you want something shorter in a garden bed as the accent piece, because fruit trees are beautiful. It's still, they're miniature. They only get up about hip high, chest high, but the fruit is not miniature. No. The fruit is actually a peach size, and they taste good. They're not just ornamental. Oh no, they're actually fruiting peaches on this pint size scale.
Right. So definitely check those out, especially if you've got a pretty container you want to put one in. I find I'm talking backwards today. So we also got a bunch of regular peaches in, Red Havens, Albertas, probably I think 4 different varieties. Oh, a white
Reliance,
peach.
Ranger.
Yeah, we got the Snow White, Snow Queen.
Yeah.
Snow Queen. So it's a white peach. I think we got a white nectarine in as well.
I missed that.
Yeah.
That's unusual.
I know.
You don't see white nectarines very often.
Not very often.
Yeah. White peach,
So we got our nectarines in. Of course, we got our apples, apricots. Am I missing? Cherries,
Stella, Bings,
Montmorency,
which is that's a pie cherry. Yeah.
I think we got those 3 in, but we're also getting, like I said, next couple of weeks, a bunch more in different sizes. We also got in a bunch of red buds.
Oh yeah.
Which are fun trees, beautiful spring blooming trees. And I think we have 4 different varieties in. We got our ornamental plums, which is, you got to grow that tree here.
Purple leaf plum. Right. So it's got purple foliage, pink flowers in the spring.
It's such a nice standard tree here that it grows so easy.
Yeah.
It's so resistant to disease and bugs, and it just always looks good.
Deer don't eat it. I mean, they're great.
I like that it's a different color leaf because it contrasts so nicely with just green.
Yeah.
Which green is pretty, but it really shows up better when you have a contrasting color with it.
When I'm designing, I'll take a purple leaf or let's say it's a forest pansy, these darker leafed colors, like purpley tinged, Merlot, redbud. I'll put those in front of that blue like oaks or the blue color of Arizona cypress, junipers. The Arizona has a lot of natural blues, and that purple just contrasts so well. It's striking, yet they're not so big that they overpower everything in front of them. They're not going to like block everything, so you can still see the native landscape behind it, but it has this contrasting color. They're just so pretty when they bloom in the spring.
I agree. We got some Twisty baby locust in, so those are really cool because they have very contorted branches, almost curly.
Now, that does not sound pretty. It sounds like
unusual,
Hunchback of Notre Dame stuff. I don't know, but it is a character tree, and they are funky. And locusts, you can't kill a locust. They're native. They're just so tough.
We did get some purple robe locust in as well, which has a beautiful pink blossom in May, usually about Mother's Day. It blooms and gorgeous when it blooms. So a lot of different those trees. One of the fruit tree that I forgot is the fuyu, the persimmon.
The fuyu? Really?
No, we've had this discussion before, Ken.
She won't let me go into my accents because she's afraid I'll offend my Irish friends or my Asian friends or my.
It's not that. It's just you're horrible at accents.
I have the best Indian.
No, you don't.
Middle East.
No.
Okay. In my head, it plays out really well. Okay, I won't do that except at family parties.
No, not even that. So we also have not all of our, but a lot of blueberries in. We have a lot of raspberries, grapes, blackberries, Marion berries. Yeah, I said blueberries.
Oh, I missed it.
He doesn't listen to me, folks. just doesn't listen. So if you're considering those edible gardens, now's the time to come in and check it all out.
Lots to choose from. They're still dormant, and it's a good time to plant them. Another one is we've got some really big, like aspens, big redbuds, big things.
Yeah.
And those will go quick. We've already sold quite a number of them. So grab them because you can't go back and get more. They're just you're out.
They're gone.
Ken and Lisa Lane, the Mountain Gardeners. Thank you, Lisa. Be back after this important message.
Look for more tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts through Ken's website. Podcast the show, read his weekly garden column, or follow him on Facebook and Instagram at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com.
Waters Garden companion plants of February are Calgary carpet juniper, lily of the valley, pinyon pines, and peony.
Your grandmother would fall in love with these larger peony with so many colors to choose from.
There's nothing like the enormous flowers to add stunning pops of color.
Endearing springtime blooms are more than fragrant with luscious double flowers.
Shop the most perennial peonies in Prescott by store or online at watersgardencenter.com. Once upon a time, Fred the Sage and Bob the Yucca watched a herd of deer eat their neighbor's garden.
Hey, Bob.
Said Fred.
It's a good thing we're native Arizona plants from Waters Garden Center.
Right, Fred.
Said Bob.
We can handle tough Prescott dirt, hot sun, low water, and we look great in the garden.
You betcha, Bob.
Said Fred.
Hummingbirds and bees love us, but that deer sure doesn't.
Be like Fred and Bob. Go native at Waters Garden Center. Safe, natural, and organic.
Welcome to the Mountain Gardener with Ken Lane. Gardening in the mountains is different. Listen to Ken's tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts guaranteed to make your gardens more beautiful than ever this year. Now for better advice that works locally, welcome your host, Ken Lane.
And we are back with the Mountain Gardener, Ken Lane. We're just here talking friends over the fence, backyards. Here's what's worked in my yard. I think it'll work in your yard too. And the mountains of Arizona are a little challenging sometimes, but not when you get the right information. Part of getting the right information is hanging out with smart people. And so I have in the studio with me Jim Roop. He is a really good gardener. Plus, he's a good grower. Plus, he worked for the Cadillac grower of the country. He represents Monrovia nurseries for all of Arizona. Is that right? Or do you got other territories too, Jim?
All of Arizona.
All Arizona. Yeah. So you're going from
Yuma to everywhere.
Everywhere in between. So you log a lot of miles, but you live in the mountains of Arizona.
You're right here in Prescott.
Right here in Prescott.
Your neighbor almost.
Yes, but you travel. You could live anywhere. Why do you live here?
It's the perfect weather. It's
okay.
Not too hot, not too cold.
You're right.
And you can grow a lot of different plants here.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
So you've grown a lot of different yards. Can you share with us, from a gardener's perspective, just that insights. What's your favorite plant? Do you have one? Can you have one?
It's like when somebody asks you, what's your favorite song, your favorite music group?
Yeah.
It's the mood you're in, etc. So, there's a lot of different plants for different seasons. Like right now, the peonies are going to be blooming in a few more weeks. And you got a really good selection of them right now. So that's like one of my favorite early perennials is peonies. Then coming up is, you got Daphne's blooming right now.
Oh, good choice. Yeah, that's your fragrance. Oh, my gosh.
And, every time I smell something really in your garden center, today it was like something sweet waffling through the air. And it's like, reminds me of the spice drop candies when I was a kid that I used to eat.
That's a good way to describe it. Yeah.
So I love that spicy scent. Great shade plant, in a container. They're excellent container plant and for that little shady spot in your entryway or patio that's got shade. So it's, right now that's one of my favorites. So next week I'll have another favorite.
So now how many acres does Monrovia grow on in the country or in the West or what? Can you give us a scale?
Well, let's see. On the West Coast, which is our Oregon, California locations, we're growing on about 1,400 acres.
Okay, gotcha. That's respectable.
Yeah. There's
pot. No, canned
it's
growing.
All containers. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And then on the East Coast, probably about, I think we have 300-400 in Georgia and 100 or so in Connecticut. So
you ship all over. You grow all over the country. And then do you ship from the Oregon farm? Do you go to Connecticut or to Georgia? And does the Georgia come to Oregon and vice versa? Or do you generally try to keep regionally?
Well, that's what we do have 4 locations is for regional, but Oregon and California, we definitely ship all the way across the country and up into Canada. Not so much from east to west, but yeah, we're national.
Why is that? Because I really, really, really want some of the hydrangeas that grow in the Georgia farm. How do I get those to Arizona? Is that agriculture laws or shipping costs? Or?
It's ironic you asked that because there's might be a light at the end of the tunnel for us.
This is exciting news, folks. Finally, we can get to some of those southern.
So we got. I looks like we're going to be able to comply with the Arizona Ag Department's regulations on the Georgia end and be able to ship here. I just need to check with Arizona on their end if there's any lengthy quarantines or something like that, which sometimes there are. And if it's really nothing it's easy, just maybe a 2-day quarantine or something, just to make sure there's no fire ants or something like that, which there's not, but, things like that have to be checked. So I would say it's looking very, very likely.
Okay, so just putting that on air, I want to be your first customer when that happens. I've got a quarantine area I could do because Oklahoma, Texas, some of those farms require that. I want to be the first guy to place the order because those plants, when they come in, are beyond anything we can grow in out here. I just haven't seen that. They're so exotic and beautiful.
Yeah, and they just some of those things just grow so much better there. And crepe myrtles are just outstanding out of
unbelievable.
there. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
and like you say, some of the hydrangeas and different hollies, and you get some of the the Burford holly, which is hard to find on the West Coast growing locations.
That's right.
But it does well here. And
so now
magnolias, beautiful magnolias there too.
Oh,
big,
you're teasing
magnolias.
me. You better come through on this. So tell us, what's the time frame? You got a feel for it? Can I hold you accountable?
Hopefully within the next month or two.
That's a big back door. Okay, before Mother's Day or not?
Yes. Let's shoot for that.
Okay, good. Not to put any pressure on you. I'm so excited though. This is good news. So, okay. Now tell us what else. Where'd we go? I got so giddy that I forgot our outline where we're talking about. You were talking perennials, some of your favorite flowers that you're growing, and you're a mountain gardener. You can live in Flagstaff or White Mountains or Prescott or wherever you want. Phoenix. You chose here because it's nice climate.
Great climate.
And you can grow a lot of things, which is true. We can grow the desert stuff. And all of the mountain stuff, all the Flagstaff we can grow, plus so much more.
Well, and you've carried this plant for a while, but the number one question you probably get is, what will javelina not bother and what will deer not bother?
That's true.
And, this question came up to me this morning when I was here at your garden center from one of your customers. And, the Lantana Miss Huff.
Okay.
I've grown that for several years. Lantana typically is not hardy for us. It's a desert plant.
Right.
But the Miss Huff is the only one that's, suitable for our climate. It's a perennial, dies down, comes back in the spring, and flowers all summer long, attracting hordes of butterflies. Beautiful flowering summer shrub. But best of all, the javelina and the deer do not bother it.
And you've got personal experience with
it.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, I know you're out.
As I watch the deer walk through my front yard and nibble on this, nibble on that, they walk right past the lantana and move on to something else to nibble on. So,
Why is
before
that?
we've pushed it as it's a Hearty Lantana.
Yeah.
But, today it really dawned on me, well, this is a great plant that's going to be, the javelina and deer don't bother, which is a big problem here.
Why is it the sap? Is the texture of the foliage, or what do you think? Is it the scent?
It's the scent. It's not a pleasant. If you rub up against it or crush the leaves. So
sure they know.
They just seem to know. And like I said, the added benefit is mine has butterflies on it. When it starts blooming in the summer till the fall, there's always a butterfly on there.
Yeah, I've never. If you don't mind, I'm going to steal that. hordes of butterflies. Hordes. I've never heard of hordes of butterflies, but that's good. I might even use that to write in. That's super. Butterflies do love it. It's a yellow flower.
Yeah, yellow with
kind of gold.
shades of darker orange.
Yeah.
And so it's not just a straight color. It's got a little multicolor facet to it. Yeah.
If you're from Phoenix or some of those other desert areas where you're used to lantanas, those varieties will also grow up here, but they're annuals. That is, they won't go through the winter. But the Miss Huff will.
Right.
It dies back to the ground like your peonies or any other, and then comes back with a flush of new growth, especially if you fertilize it in the next month or so. It will flush out with new growth, and then flowers hover above that new growth that attracts the butterflies. It just blooms all summer long. Yeah, good choice. So. And then I do notice, too, don't overwater it. It doesn't like gooey, wet clay soil. It likes to dry out in between irrigation cycles.
Yeah, no, it can do that. Yeah. So
thrill us with some other garden tip. We got room for maybe one more because this is good stuff.
Another vine I noticed it's starting to bloom. It's one of your kind of earlier spring blooming vines is the gold flame honeysuckle.
Okay, yeah,
and they're blooming right now, starting to.
Yeah.
And they can have a little spicy fragrance to them also, reminiscent to me, once again, a spicy candy drop. But they're blooming now. It's a beautiful kind of an orangish with a shade of red flower to it. So different color than the regular Japanese Hall's honeysuckle. So that's something different. And
I think honeysuckle is underplanted sometimes. It's so drought hardy.
Yeah, and it's a red flower, so the hummingbirds really
all
love
over it.
that.
Yeah.
So
honeysuckle, you can grow that not just on a fence, not just on an arbor or a pergola, but that actually makes a good ground cover up a hillside. Erosion control takes that full blistering hot sun, and again, the javelina and the deer don't bother honeysuckle.
Yeah.
So it's another great choice for here. If you need something spreading out on the ground or crawling up to hide that chain link or soften up a corner of a fence, honeysuckle is the way to go. Thanks, Jim, for being here. This is great. Jim Roop with Monrovia Nurseries here sharing his garden tips for the mountains of Arizona. Be right back.
You're listening to local garden expert Ken Lane, the owner of Waters Garden Center. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center, located in Prescott at 1815 Iron Springs Road. Thanks for tuning in to The Mountain Gardener.
It's almost spring. Time to grow a pear.
A pear tree, that is.
Late winter is ideal for planting fruit trees. At Waters Garden Center has cherry-picked the hardiest, heaviest producing trees from our most trusted growers.
From apples to apricots and persimmons to pears, the Garden Center is plumb full of varieties that thrive in our mountain soil.
And we'll even plant them for you.
We believe life is a bowl of cherries, so grow the best ones ever from Waters Garden Center in Prescott. If life is a bowl of cherries, why not make them the biggest, sweetest cherries ever?
Waters Garden Center is super excited to introduce our new organic fruit and vegetable plant food.
This fertilizer has the bonus of added calcium that gives fruit trees and veggies an extra boost to produce healthy, abundant crops.
Feed your plants now to help them thrive and grow more fruits than ever. And just $27 for a 20-pound bag.
Safe, natural, organic fruit and vegetable plant food only at Waters Garden Center. You've tuned in to The Mountain Gardener with local garden expert Ken Lane. Join him each week as he answers timely garden questions that are sure to make a difference in your gardens. Now welcome your host, Ken Lane.
So I was stunned last week. Remember last week, it was down to 12 degrees or something. Was it 10 days ago, something like that? It was really, really cold. I thought, this is the perfect time to prune some of those things that seem to leak a lot. So maples tend to make a cut and they start to weep. Box elders, grapes. Well, now I'm going to go out and prune. Right after that cold, if it's actually still, I was bundled up, took my pruners out, started pruning, and nope, that cold did not slow down the sap at all. The trees are actively moving moisture from the root system up into the buds throughout the structure of those fruit trees. Anyway, apples will do that. I think you should feel pressure right now to really get done with your pruning, especially fruit trees. Not so much roses, but fruit trees and berries and your shade trees. These are things you really want to get done. And I thought the cold would slow them down, but no, they're full on. And I would fertilize. 2 things. Get done pruning. You should feel that urgency. When you get done pruning, clean up, and then spray the entire yard with a horticultural oil. There's a heavy gauged oil that kills off aphids. Are thick right now in the gardens. It'll just obliterate all of them and their eggs. It'll get rid of thrip eggs. It'll just start you out clean, and then fertilize with all-purpose plant food. That 744 organic food. Do all of that, and I would feel the pressure by the end of this month, February, if not sooner. So really, you should be out there engaged with your gardens. They are. I know that the Pennsylvania vermin from Pixitani Phil predicts 6 more weeks of winter. I don't think he knows Arizona, though. It feels like it's going to be early. So already the ground is thawed. There's no more ice, at least below the 6,000 foot level or so. Things are going to start blooming pretty quick. And so kind of feel that urgency. Get those soils prepared, fertilize, get done with pruning, spray so that you don't have, put down the weed preventers. My goodness. The California poppies are already actively growing. Mums are up. The dandelions are already huge. So things are the late winter, early spring things, they're actively growing. You need to put those weed preventers down before they get established to save yourself from work out there. And I think trees have just arrived this week. If you were going to put a new tree, a shade tree, we've got some beautiful blooming red buds, flowering cherries, spectacular maples. Oh my gosh, they're huge. Get them in before they leaf out. So spring is the planting season. It is here. We're going to go over a lot of this with our next week's garden class. So this week it's on mountain fruit trees. So which fruit trees do best? Not all of them grow here, but there's some that are spectacular. We're covering those. I'm sure we'll cover grapes and berries and some of that stuff. And then next week, it's gardening for newcomers. We're going to go over a lot of this fertilization, how to water guides, how to plant. Something as simple as that. You cannot just throw things in the ground and expect them to grow. You need to do a few extra steps to really prepare them so that they take off and grow for you. We're going over all that, but take a look at that, watersgardencenter.com. There's a classes button right there on the front page. You can't miss it. And of course, throughout the week, Lisa and I camp out here at Waters Garden Center. We love talking to fans of the show.
Some things are just better together.
March is the best time to fertilize with all-purpose plant food from Waters Garden Center.
But pair the all-purpose with humic acid, and it's a 1-2 punch of garden power.
Humic acid gives your soil organic matter that helps plants' roots receive water and nutrients.
So it makes fertilizer work even better.
Like salt and pepper.
Coffee and donuts.
And hey, you and me.
Aw. Thanks, Ken.
All-purpose plant food and humic acid better together, and only at Waters Garden Center.
If you want a more fruitful garden, increase success in your landscape that just feels better, then tune in every week to The Mountain Gardener. Years of tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts are guaranteed to make your gardens nicer than ever. Listen to this podcast or read Ken's weekly garden column by visiting watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Thanks for tuning in.